enough protein. I'm gonna throw some beans in it. We're doing a snack plate for lunch. Persian cucumbers are the best because the skin is super thin. English cucumbers, I feel like the skin is too thick. I love cucumbers so much. Yeah. Like, you do all the boring potato stuff. Yeah. Okay, so every week at the farmer's market, or like almost every week, I get dolmas and hummus. This time I got the sun-dried tomato one and basil one because that's the one I thought I liked, but I really do like the habanero one, so next time we need to remember. And I get dolmas, which this is the first time I've ever had them, like from this guy. They are so good. They are like, I think they're fermented grape leaves with brown rice stuffed in them. Amazing. I want to make my hummus on toast a little bit spicy, so I'm going to add harissa. My friend Alon in college, he is an excellent baker, and he would make this harissa bread. And I remember I ate an entire loaf in one day because one, I didn't have any groceries in the fridge, and two, it was so good. He also made these harissa and sweet potato feta scones. I think he made that the first time we met. Oh my God. That guy was an excellent baker. I have these marinated olives left over from a dinner party I threw with my friend like about a month and a half ago. The olives have been sitting in my fridge, but they're in oil and the oil has solidified. So I'm gonna microwave down a little bit and then use the juicy olive oil, the flavorful olive oil, to dress the kidney beans. Oh, it'll be perfect. I just used lemon juice, lemon peel, orange peel, garlic. I think I used some herbs, red pepper flakes. Ooh, when I was in Spain, I think, 2 years ago, I was addicted to having vermouth. Oh God, I shouldn't say I was addicted to having vermouth. I'm not an alcoholic, guys. But I really, really loved Spanish vermouth with the olives they use and from this specific bar. It was amazing, and I have yet to find those same olives in the States. I think they were Calvestrano olives. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation. But that turned me really on to olives. Like, I've always liked olives, but specifically those olives, amazing. Okay, how do I plate this? Oh, I'll use a little bowl. I have better bowls outside. I'll be back. I need to work on my bowl game. I have really good tiny bowls and really good big bowls, but not good medium-sized bowls, but it's fine. I have an entire dishware cabinet. I will show you guys one day. It is gorgeous. Okay, lunch is ready. So we have our kidney beans with olives, and then we have our cucumbers with kosher salt, our dolmas, and then a slice and a half of bread with hummus and harissa toast. No, and harissa paste. Oh, divine. Okay, let's go eat. So good. I want to talk about something that's been on my mind for a while. Having a greater purpose. We're all put on this earth for a limited amount of time. Some people's journeys are longer than others. Is there a reason to all our existence? My dad is very philosophical, and in the last few years, he's become a student of Stoicism, which is a sector of philosophy, I guess. He likes to say that sometimes there is no greater purpose than just to be happy with where you are, to enjoy the moment, to appreciate your friends and family, to enjoy what you have, and to not constantly seek out external mediums of joy. And while I agree with him, I do think this is different for people who have intense passions. For me, that's always been food and cooking, the culinary industry. For as long as I've known, I've been in the kitchen. My earliest memories of cooking are when I was like 3 or 4 years old in my parents' kitchen, and when I was 5 years old, my dad taught me how to make crepes, and that's the first thing I ever learned how to make on my own. I was always extremely curious about food growing up. So much more than just the act of putting something in your mouth. Just as an orchestra has trumpet players and flutists and piano players and whatnot, and every single player contributes to the final song. And if the flutist isn't there, or if the trumpet section is gone, the entire song doesn't sound the same. Something is missing. And that's the same way about cooking. Every single ingredient a chef uses is so very intentional. Every single method someone uses to cook is so intentional. Think about asparagus for a second. Say you boil it versus if you were to roast in the oven. If you were to roast in the oven with salt and oil and heat combined, the chemical reaction of all those things brings out the sugars of the asparagus and it caramelizes it and makes it sweeter. Whereas if you were to just blanch it, it tastes entirely different. Or say you were to use spices in a dish, but you were to use them just raw versus you were to cook them down in oil and marry the flavors together and layer it. Two entirely different dishes. Cooking is a science. It's an art form. There's a reason why people use jasmine rice instead of Thai glutinous sticky rice, or why someone chooses to julienne carrots versus slice them into rounds when pickling them. Or when you're adding a final garnish to a dish and you choose to add crispy fried garlic instead of crispy fried onions. Everything has a purpose and a place. I became obsessed with cooking at a really early age. I think the idea of bringing a craving to life, of smelling something and trying to replicate the taste of it. I'm blessed to be the daughter of two immigrants, a father from Pakistan and a mother from India, and born and raised in the Bay Area, California. Two countries with similar yet insanely different cuisines and a metropolitan area with some of the most diverse demographic I have ever known. I'm extremely fortunate that I've been able to learn about foods from around the world just within miles of my hometown. I never used to be a bean person, and now I am. They're so good and such a good source of protein. From the Korean restaurant in Cupertino that has some of the best banchan I've ever had, or the street tacos next to my house that make me supremely jealous of being in Mexico, but they come close, or the fact that I grew up with so many Vietnamese friends in my childhood whose parents taught me so much about a cuisine that exists far beyond just pho, or my uncle who lives 10 minutes away from me that is such an amazing cook and teaches me so much about Pakistani food and shares my love for being in the kitchen. I owe everything to being a good cook to my community and where I was raised. You have to dip the bread in the oil. It's the best part. I don't make the rules. Yes, I love to cook, but I think a big part of that is loving to eat, because truly you can't be a great cook without being a great eater, without being curious and unafraid to take risks with your meals and to have wonder into the history behind what you're eating. Because food is language, food is culture, food is politics, food is community, food is people, food is everything. You can't be a good cook if you're not learning about the backstory of every single thing on the dish in front of you. I've been procrastinating on putting this away. My friend Marissa and I went to Tamales Bay this weekend. Gorgeous, oh my God. Okay, where was I? Cooking, right? That's all I ever talk about. Anyways, well, I think my happiest moments have always been in the kitchen. And from a really young age, I knew I wanted to open a restaurant, but it was a very naive ambition. I wanted to open a restaurant because I loved to cook and I love food, and I didn't really have any other interests in life, so that was my primary motivation. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I knew I loved to cook, so I'm like, okay, open a restaurant. But as I got older and I started traveling more and learning more about cultures, I still want to open a restaurant, but the intentions are far more beyond just because I love to cook. I want to open a restaurant because I want to build community. When I was backpacking Europe a couple summers ago, I was in awe at the amount of patrons that were overflowing on the streets of Florence or Lisbon with the glasses of wine, and some of them alone reading a book, or others with friends sharing a plate of tapas and just having fun and chatting until 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning. And that's something you don't see in the US. Maybe New York, maybe Chicago, but even then, it doesn't come close. And I know it's because of the industrial structure of the US, because it's built on roads and made for cars, whereas in older countries, in Europe or anywhere else, it's built on trains and it's far more walkable. And I can get into this another time, but America's car dependency and need for hyper-independence only adds to further isolation from everyone. I love paddleboarding, but putting it away is so exhausting. Oh my God. Because in the Bay, you get in your car, you go to the grocery store, you get back in your car, you get in your car to go to work. You can avoid people at all costs if you wanted to, but for example, in Mexico City, You take the metro to go to the grocery store and then walk to work, and you're constantly surrounded by people. You're forced to communicate with others, even if you don't want to, but I think that's a good thing, because isn't life about people? Aren't experiences supposed to be shared? Humans are meant to be with other humans, not alone. I'm making kombucha. It was pretty simple. I have the recipe that I saw online. I did 2 quarts of water, half a cup of sugar, 4 tea bags, and then this is 2 cups of starter. I'm supposed to only use 1. No, actually, sorry. This is 1 cup of starter. Fermentation is very meditative, and it's teaching me how to slow down in the kitchen. I've never been one to follow recipes, but with fermentation, you have to make sure everything's sanitized, the right temperature, and you can't rush it. So I'm really excited to get into it because I think there's a lot to learn. I want to make a ginger lemon kombucha, but I think I want to flavor it in the second fermentation. Like I was saying, your opportunities to be alone in the USA are so much higher due to the fact that our public transportation system sucks, and I can get into that another time, but it's not my area of expertise. But my friend Ash, who is really into urbanism, is so well educated about it. I messaged him and he graciously sent me links to some resources that you guys could look into more if you want to learn more about the loneliness epidemic and how urbanism affects that, and roads versus trains, the US versus Europe, all that. So I'll link it in the description for you. Okay, I think I'm gonna let this sit for like 3 weeks and then do the flavoring in the next fermentation and let it sit for a few days. Cool. This morning I was organizing all my photos because I have so many. So this is my little box of all my extra photos, and these are the photo albums I made. I think this one is of me as a kid. So all those baby photos that you saw in that first video, I stole these photos from my parents' album. I was a really cute kid. Oh my god. Look at this photo on me on a bike. I was such a tomboy as a kid, and I'm definitely going back to that as an adult. And these are my photos from when I was a bit older, I think like starting in high school. Oh my god. I think part of me is scared of losing a memory. I know that's a trending sound on TikTok, but truly, like this trip with my friend Anissa to the Grand Canyon 2.5 years ago, I feel like I'm already forgetting of our crazy stories together. And whenever we travel together, we always have the most insane travel experiences, but they make for great stories. Anyways, my point is that our country is lonely. There is a rising loneliness epidemic, a decline in human connection, and even if it's just a drop in the pool, I want to do my part to try to make a difference in the world. To build community, to increase human connection, to foster relationships, and the best way I know how to do that is through food. So this is my memory box. I keep everything that isn't a photo in here, and one of my favorite things that I keep in here are my previous menus. So these are drawings from when I thought I was going to do a donut pop-up. That never happened, but we have lemon meringue pie donuts. I made those. Those are really good. Rose cardamom, passion fruit creme brulee. This was so funny because during that point in college, it was COVID, and I would wake up at 4 a.m. to make donuts because I would do a cold proof overnight. I was absolutely absurd. My roommates were so gracious. And then these are knives because I thought I was going to get a knife tattoo. I ended up getting a whisk, a knife, and a spoon, but that was my first tattoo. And then we also have, this is from my noodle pop-up in college. I think I did like 80 orders, and it was absolutely insane logistically. I did an order pickup every 15 minutes and had a 15-minute buffer at the end of the hour so I can clean up. That was an absolutely ridiculous day. I actually have vlog footage from that entire day that I need to scrub through, and maybe I'll make a video from that. And this is a menu from a roommate's birthday dinner. A lot of good stuff. So if I'm able to replicate even a fraction of that feeling in Europe, where you're on the patio with your friends until 2 a.m. drinking wine, or eating the best street food of your life in Southeast Asia, or maybe it's getting way too drunk off makgeolli in South Korea, I'll die happy. My life will be fully complete when I open a restaurant, and I say when, not if, because it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time, and I'm really, really excited for that day. And yes, if you know me, you know that I already have this restaurant planned out to a T. The name, the menu, the cultural influence, the music playing on the speakers, the tiles on the countertop, the type of dishware, everything. Also, I'm really sorry if you're hearing a hissing sound in the background. My dad is using the pressure cooker, which you'll know is a staple in every Indian household, so my apologies. I'm eating this snack from my friend Lauren. She got it from, I think, her parents or grandparents in Vietnam. It's a sour apple candy, or it's a custard apple candy. Sitaful. I think they're all synonymous. I'm not entirely sure, but they're so good. It's like sweet and chewy. Anyways, there's a reason I want to open a restaurant as opposed to being a chef. By being a chef, you're a master of one. You're siloed down into a specific area of expertise, whereas running a restaurant, you're a jack of all trades, which is something I'm really good at. You have to pay attention to all the little details that create a great dining experience, from the type of music playing to the lighting that creates the ambiance, or the specific ceramic dish versus a steel plate that you're going to use to serve a cake, because the way a spoon hits it when you're cutting it makes a really, really distinct difference. And maybe not everything all the customers will notice, but everything together makes a huge difference. Asking my friends or my parents the amount of dinners I've hosted, whether it was inviting a few friends over for my homemade pho, or hosting a supper club where I'm inviting strangers to my house to eat my food, or maybe learning from a friend how to make pozole. In high school, I would find any excuse to host my group project at my house so that I could make them dinner. All I want to do every second of every single day is cook, to think of recipes, to create a dining experience for others, to become a better chef, to try and evoke an emotion out of a bite of food made by me. There exists no better feeling to me than bringing people together to eat a meal. To share an experience together and see the joy in their face when they eat my food, or sometimes how it triggers a memory. I truly believe my greater purpose on this planet is to build community through food and to ultimately open a restaurant. That's the end goal. It always has been. Where is it? I have so many notebooks, but where? Oh, here it is. I wrote this journal entry down when I got this notebook because I'd intended for this book to be my recipe book, and I wanted to start documenting all my recipes, which I only started a few months ago, but I got this notebook a couple years ago. So I have it called The Plan. I literally have detailed the next 10 years of my life starting in 2022. Nothing has gone to plan. Firstly, I was supposed to quit my job in January 2026. I quit it in February 2024. So that didn't go to plan. And then in 2030, I'm supposed to open the restaurant. So I've always known it's going to happen. I'm booking my flights to Asia right now. I'm going to Vietnam in November and India in December, and I'm so excited because Vietnamese food has had such a big influence in my life since growing up with so many Vietnamese friends, and it was a huge catalyst into my interest in the culinary world. And I love Vietnamese food so much, and I've tried to learn as much as I can, but there's nothing better than going to the source of it. And I'm going to India and going to spend time with my grandparents in Mumbai. My grandma is a fantastic cook, and I've done an extremely poor job of learning any recipes from her, so I want to do my part to document some of her recipes. Okay, let's look at these flights. Go by cheapest, of course. Oh my god. Should I take a 32-hour flight, but that's a 14-hour layover in Seoul, South Korea? Oh my god. I think I'm gonna do that. Oh my god. I booked my flights. I'm going to Vietnam with a stopover in Seoul, and then I'm gonna go to India. I might go to Singapore for a week and then visit my friend in Cambodia if he's free. Oh my god. Oh my god, this year is gonna be really fun. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Okay, but the thing is, I'm not opening a restaurant anytime soon because I don't want to be a 23-year-old restaurant owner, and frankly, I don't have enough money. I also don't want to settle down. I just want to be a girl in her young 20s, just having fun with her friends and exploring the world and being silly and not having to worry about paying my employees, or on the phone with a vendor not knowing why the cabbage hasn't been delivered yet. I also want to build my experience. I may have a lot of experience already, but I'm not ready to open a restaurant, and I want to become better at everything I'm already doing. When I posted that first video a few weeks ago, I knew I wanted my initial career before I open a restaurant to be a content creator because I ultimately want to build a personal brand before I open a restaurant. I want to build a presence online and have an impact on people and build community around my work. Because in this day and age, in order to be a successful entrepreneur, social media is a big factor of that, and having a robust personal brand is super important to your success. If you think about it, if for the next decade, I dedicate myself towards documenting my journey towards becoming a restaurant owner, and the day I do decide to open it, imagine the potential patrons I'm able to funnel towards my restaurant because I already have a large audience to capitalize on. Hopefully, I'm able to build a following by then, but we'll see. So figuring that out made me feel a lot better about this content creation journey because I now have a central focus working towards a larger goal. I've been following this one creator, Gabby from Tofu Goob, who has been documenting her process of becoming a full-time artist, and she recently quit her job to do just that. And it's been so exciting to see her journey, and I'm really glad I figured out what my journey is. What am I working towards? What is the bigger picture that I'm trying to build? I still want to do what I set out to do. Share you stories about my mental health, introduce you to people in my life, and share adventures that I'm going on. But they're not exclusionary from food, because food is integrated into the very fabric of my life. It was funny because I was thinking to myself, I don't want to be a food content creator because I don't want to be a recipe tutorial person. I don't want to teach people how to cook, but I love talking about food and I love talking about the culinary industry. And I was like, do I have enough stuff to talk about food? And literally, I was looking in my room, and every single thing in my room, every single piece of clothing, every single memory I have, every friend I have, every adventure I've gone on, everything is associated with the memory of food. So yes, I have a lot to talk about when it comes to food. And no, I'm not going to teach you how to cook. There are so many other channels out there that teach you recipe tutorials, but I don't want to teach you how to cook. I want to open up your mind about food, to play my part as an educator and open up your mind about the culinary world. I want to invite you to explore other cultures beyond what you already know, and to have empathy for the world around you, and to travel to places that you never thought you would go to before. Because if I want to be a restaurant owner, I want to do my part to inspire others who want to do the same and teach people who don't more about food. Anyways, that's all to say, I'm going to document my journey towards becoming a restaurant owner, and I'm going to do everything in my power to aid my success in that. So, this is the plan. So I've defined 5 firm pillars of focus towards opening a restaurant. The first one being, it's so hard to write on a whiteboard like this, but money. I want to make sure that I'm financially stable and secure before I open a restaurant, because I'm well aware that a restaurant makes no one rich. Even if I were to get a loan, I need assets to prove to loaners that I'm reliable with my finances. More importantly, by the time I do open a restaurant, I want to make sure that I've built passive streams of income, and that's what I'm trying to do with this whole content creation thing. If you're not familiar with how people make money through content creation, I'll put links in the description for you, but it is a really lucrative career for people who keep at it and are good at it, which is something that I'm hoping that I'm able to build. So for me, primarily, I want to focus on YouTube and Instagram as my revenue sources, but I'm also going to be working on Substack and Patreon as secondary revenue streams. For the most part, the money in this career comes from brand sponsorships and ad revenue. Okay, anyways, the second pillar. That's supposed to be a briefcase representing business, aka business experience, but clearly drawing is not one of my talents. So business experience is one of the things that I feel really confident saying that I have the chops to run a restaurant with. I've always had a very entrepreneurial mindset. In elementary school, I would bring stuff that I've made at home to sell to kids at my school, from clay charms to handmade bow ties to graphic t-shirts. In middle school, I sold my clay charms on Etsy, and then I wanted to start tutoring kids in my neighborhood. So I put flyers around people's houses in their mailboxes during Halloween to advertise my services, which I know is highly illegal, but we're past that. In high school, I worked with my student body leadership as well as a women's fashion store, Anthropology, to host cooking workshops. And in college, I sold food out of my apartment as well as partnering with local businesses. And I also grew my leadership experience by starting clubs from the ground up, most notably one in college where I grew it to over 300 members. I also tutored all of my academic career. Specifically, I taught undergraduate student statistics in college, and I think teaching is a really important skill good leaders need to have, aka to run a business better. So I feel confident in saying I have this pillar checked off. Third, community. I think community is one of the things that is important with anything that you're doing. For a large part of my life, I prided myself in doing things alone, and I think this stems from the hyper-capitalistic, hyper-independent culture of America. I think it was ingrained in my mind that asking for help or doing things as a team is seen as less of an accomplishment than doing it alone. I also never really had anyone else in my life who shared an intense passion for the culinary arts as I did, so I was kind of forced to go at this alone. But then in college, I started meeting more people who love to cook. I started networking with restaurant owners, working in restaurants, and my network started to slowly grow and grow. And I want to make sure that I'm continuing to do that by meeting with small business owners, meeting with people who work at restaurants, and meeting just peers in the industry who are trying to become better chefs. A big lesson I learned this past year battling my anxiety and depression is that you can't do things alone and you can't succeed without having a strong foundation of community. Especially if you're in a creative field like I'm in, you need community in order to inspire creativity. Thankfully, I'm a very social and extroverted person, so I have no fear about this at all. I'm able to make friends on trains, on buses, on planes, in grocery stores, on the internet, on Facebook groups, so I don't have worry that I'll be able to do this. Fourth, that's supposed to be a globe. I don't really know how to draw. Anyways, cultural empathy. As I mentioned earlier, in order to be a good cook, you need to be a good eater. And in order to be a good eater, you need to be curious about the world around you. My plan for the next year, and hopefully thereafter, is to travel as much as I feasibly can, specifically in order to learn more about the cuisines around me. In the spring, I'm planning to go to Mexico for a couple months, and I'm really excited to go back because ever since my family and I visited last spring, I was so amazed at the vibrancy of the city, from the colors of people's clothes to the music to the loud expression of emotion to the food to everything. I want to go back and stage at a few restaurants, and if you don't know what a stage is, it's basically a free working interview in the restaurant industry. And something that will help my success in that is by learning Spanish. So Spanish is the language that I learned in middle school and high school, but I entirely lost it because of out of practice. And I've always wanted a reason to learn it again, but I've never had time to do so, and now I have both. So I'm hoping in a year from now, I'll be able to be a lot more fluent in Spanish to get around the city and to communicate with people in kitchens. And I'm really excited to see how learning this language will open up my success in this career. I also want to prioritize traveling within my own city, and by that I mean exploring ethnic grocery stores or markets around me, restaurants that represent cuisines that I've never heard of, talking with friends and family who are great cooks and learning from them. Travel can be expensive, but if your main intention with travel is learning, I think you can do a lot with the resources and people you already have around you. Fifth and last pillar. I think this is supposed to be like a chicken drumstick and like maybe green beans? I don't know. But anyways, culinary expertise. I mentioned earlier I don't want to be the chef of my restaurant, but I do want to make sure that I have a primary influence on the menu and food I'm serving. And I think by becoming a better cook, I'll be able to communicate better with more technically talented chefs in order to build a more cohesive and diverse menu inspired by the food that I already love. I'm a relatively good cook if I do say so myself, and if you follow me on Instagram, you probably see loads of photos and videos of stuff I'm cooking every day. But I still feel like I have a long ways to go in order to get better in the kitchen. Ever since I quit my job a couple months ago, I've been so ecstatic at the amount of time I've been able to have in the kitchen. I'm able to spend a couple hours every day making a good dinner or taking my time going grocery shopping, and I feel more creative, my brain feels lighter, and I feel so inspired every day, and I'm able to act on that inspiration almost immediately instead of it staying away in a notebook tucked away on my desk. So there's a few things that I'm doing in order to get better in the kitchen. First, documentation. You saw earlier the recipe book I had, so that's where I've been storing all my recipes since a couple months ago. I've never been one to document any of the things I cook just because I don't like the idea of making recipes, and I'm also a very intuitive cook. I cook by taste and smell and sight and texture, and once you've poured olive oil enough times, you know how much 2 tablespoons is, or you've made chicken soup enough times to know how much salt to put into it. But the problem with this is consistency. Every time I try to make a dish that I made 3 months ago that came out great, I'm unable to replicate it exactly, and you can't have that fly in a restaurant. So what I'm doing is making sure to document as much as I can when I'm cooking in the kitchen in my notebook and transferring the final iteration of the recipe to a Google Sheet. I'm also making sure to measure as much as I can in grams because weight is far more accurate of a measurement than volume. Okay, last 2 prompts. Technique and cuisine. My flavor profile when I'm cooking heavily is biased towards Korean food and Vietnamese food and Chinese food, just Asian food in general. I love it so much and I eat so much of it. And I love it. But I want to do a better job about learning about other cuisines like Latin American food and Middle Eastern food and Indian food. Like I am Indian by ethnic descent, but I don't know how to cook any Indian food, I think, because I eat so much good Indian food at home. I never crave it because I always eat so much of it. I have a running list on my notes of all the things that I want to cook, but I'm going to transfer some of that to paper just because I feel like when it's on paper, when it's analog and when I'm crossing it out, I'm a lot more intentional and I remember what I'm doing and what I've done. I want to learn more about Chinese food. I know I already said I cook a lot of Chinese food, but I want to learn like specifically about the different provinces. Sichuanese food for sure. I think I would love to learn about Chinganese food, Taiwanese food, Latin American food, specifically Peruvian food, Mexican food, Guyanese food. There's a lot of Indian influence in Guyana, which I found really interesting. They have this like chana filled roti that I saw on TikTok. I forget what it's called, but I would love to learn how to make that. Okay, then we have Middle Eastern food, Lebanon, Turkish food, Palestinian food, Afghan food. Okay, and then we also have other European food, Spanish food. Italian, I feel like I've already learned a good amount, but I think there's like some to learn there. Portuguese food, and then Indian food. I'm gonna sit down later and add more to this list, but I think what I'm gonna do is like every week I'm gonna focus on a different cuisine just so I can dive in really deep. Okay, technique. So this is the part that I've always been bad at because I just like cook innately. I don't follow recipes and I've been really bad about learning technique and following the science, but I want to get better at that. For example, I want to learn more about wines. I think it's in my room. The book is being used as my tripod right now, so I can't show it to you, but the book is called Wine Simple. It's a book all about wines, and I really want to learn more about wines. Also would love to learn the basics of bartending and just flavoring with alcohol, just learn more about hard liquor or just the alcohol world in general, because alcohol is such a big component of the dining experience. I would love to learn how to butcher a chicken, fillet a fish, laminate pastry. My friend Alon, who I mentioned earlier, who makes really, really good bread and made that harissa bread, also made really good croissants and just really good pastry. And I so respected how much time he was able to put in to learn a craft so well. So I would love to learn how to laminate pastry. Tempered chocolate, which I know sounds extremely basic, but patience is something I very much lack. So I want to get more scientific about tempering chocolate, getting into the right temperature and doing so when you crack it, it's a really clean, crispy crack. Oh, sourdough. Fermentation. Hey, we started today with kombucha, right? I want to get into kimchi and just like fermentation in general. My sister bought me fermentation weights a couple Christmases ago, and I can't wait to use them. Sharpen my own knives. I have Japanese knives, and I want to learn how to sharpen them on my own because I can and I should. Season a cast iron. I've like done it before, but I want to learn it better because I feel like I'm doing it really haphazardly. Okay. So that's like the list I've started. I'm going to continue to add to this and just be really focused every week on learning something new and just building my repertoire. I think that's it, guys. We're opening a restaurant in like 10 years, but I think I have a pretty good solid plan to get there. This is my version of a lazy meal. It's really just udon with suyu. Suyu is this Japanese soup soy sauce that has been steeped with bonita flakes, which are fish flakes, and it has a really, really strong umami flavor, and it's just really good to use in soup bases. I just use that, hot water. I put my udon in. Today I added some enoki mushrooms and I added soft tofu because I love the texture of soft tofu. It just melts in your mouth like it's an egg, and then of course green onion because you need that vibrancy. So good. Oh, and then togarashi, which is a Japanese like chili powder. Anyways, I'm gonna go eat my dinner, but before I go, I just want to say thank you for watching this video and joining me on this journey. I really hope you feel inspired to pursue whatever it is you're going after, and know that no dream is too big or too ambitious because you can do anything you set your mind to. I think it's all about mindset, and I'm really excited for my journey, and I'm so happy you're here to follow along. It's gonna be hard and it's gonna have its ups and downs, and I want to document everything, all the good and the bad. And it feels good that I sat down to figure out what my greater purpose is, to know that I'm working towards something that is bigger than me, that every day I wake up and I know a larger goal that I am going towards. I love the texture of udon. I want to try to make fresh udon. It's just so bouncy. And please tell me what your greater purpose is, if you feel like you have one, what your dreams and goals are in the comments below, or DM me on Instagram. I'd love to hear from you. And yeah, thank you again. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.